Welcome, educators. Whether you are a spreadsheet, dashboard, all things data fanatic like myself, or you break out into a cold sweat just hearing the words data meeting, it's okay. I've got you. My name is Jessica Lane, and I'm your host for this podcast, Data in Education. I'm also the founder of Data Informed Impact, where I work with schools and educators all over to get rid of some of that overwhelm and make things a little bit easier for them to make the best decisions for their students. We'll be talking about all things data culture, data literacy, and data visualization. Let's get started. Welcome to Data in Education. Today we're joined by Tom Kaster, founder of the Datafied Classroom. Tom's journey from corporate life to teaching to data consulting gives him a very unique perspective on data-informed schools. He's worked with international schools and IB data, creating dashboards that benefit both teachers and admin. He's also the first interview that I'm doing, and we're going through a little bit of technical difficulties, but that's okay. We made it through, so I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you being my little guinea pig for the day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So I gave an overview of your background, but tell me a little bit more. Give me a little bit more detail on that.
All right. Well, I started by going to school for firefighting of all things, and never happened. And I said if I wasn't fighting fires by the time I was 30, I was going to go back to school for education. I've got a lot of educators, a lot of service people in my family, nurses, librarians, educators, police. And so I went from firefighting school to corporate to transition to teaching. I started teaching in Indianapolis at a charter school there for a couple years. And then once I got my teaching license, my cousin, who was a principal at an international school, said, you have to go international. So around 2008, I went overseas and I never looked back. And I'm currently living in Chile, of all places.
Wow. So did you
Yeah.
start in Chile when you
No,
went international?
I started. So I started in Indianapolis, and then I went to Trinidad and Tobago for 2 years. Went to London for a short bit for a year. Cairo, Egypt for 3. New Delhi, India for 2. Buenos Aires for 3, and we've been here in Chile for we're in our 6th year now.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot of
Yeah,
traveling. Do
it's
you
a lot
enjoy
of traveling.
moving?
I do not. And once we had kids, you might notice our stay at the at the location started to extend a little bit longer. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. When I moved into this house, I was like, I can't, I'm going to be here for a while because that process, I lived in Chicago for several years and we moved around quite a bit when we were in Chicago. And oh my goodness, especially for some reason, we decided to move there in February. So our leases were always
Oh,
up in February. So we were moving with like snow and ice. Oh my goodness, it was ridiculous.
yeah.
But
Well, I grew up outside Chicago, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
yes, yeah, not a
Yeah.
good time when you're trying to move and slip in on ice.
No.
Okay, cool. So, you've had a very unique experience in education. What kind of led you down the road of kind of looking into the value of data? Like, were you always a fan of data, or is that something that kind of grew as time went along?
Well, I was a math teacher. I was a high school math teacher,
Ah,
so I've
me
always kind of
too.
been immersed in numbers. Yeah, I've always
Yes.
been immersed in numbers. But my foray into data, it every year at the end. Well, every year IB has exams for kids who are getting ready to graduate. It's a 2 year program, so they have their exams, and then over the summer, over the North American summer, the IB sends back the results to the schools. The beginning of the following school year, we always review the results and kind of see, okay, where have we done well, where have we struggled, how did our kids do, all of that kind of good information. Um, but what often happens is our coordinators at many of the schools I've been at, they say, okay, well, here's the spreadsheet of data that IB provided. Here's some PDFs that IB provides. Go see what you can figure out. And even as a math teacher and someone who knows their way around numbers and spreadsheets and all that, I never had time to really dig into the information the way that I felt was beneficial. So I had two separate people outside of my teaching. One is a really good friend from Indianapolis who does data work for juvenile justice reform, and another is a former mentor of mine when I was getting my teaching degree. And they both said, "Hey, you should check out these dashboards. This is something that I think you could really sink your teeth into. I don't think there's a lot of this happening in education." So I started playing around with it, and I asked my coordinator. I said, "Hey, can I use our data to just kind of play with this? I need a data set that I can work with this software, which is Looker Studio, which I believe you are also a fan of."
Yep, huge fan.
Yep. So I used our data, and he had said, "Wow, this is not only amazing." Pat on the back, but it was also something that I've got teachers on staff here who've been teaching for 15, 20 years who've never really looked at the data, who are now digging into the data. And
Wow.
so I felt kind of inspired by that. And after about 18 years in the classroom, I kind of felt like I need a little bit of a break, so let's try this and see what comes of it.
Yeah, so neat. A very similar story to mine in terms of, starting to create dashboards and people are like, "Oh, wow, this is actually really useful." That pat on the back feels really good when you've been a teacher for so long. Like,
Yeah, for
you
real.
told me I'm doing something good. That's awesome. For those people who don't know what IB data is, can you just do a quick little background of what IB stands for and what that data means?
For sure. IB is International Baccalaureate. So if you're in North America, it's similar to the AP program. It's kind of but it's a little bit more holistic. It's a 2-year program where the kids go through 8 courses over the 2 years. Plus, they have some core components where they have to write a 4,000-word essay, where they have to do some service work, and they come out of that with an internationally recognized diploma. So, but there is external exams like the AP, so it's similar in that regard, but also different because it is a holistic curriculum as opposed to individualized courses. Students could take one course at a time. If they don't want to take the full IB, they could take a certificate for it. But the International Baccalaureate, there's something like 4 or 5 thousand schools around the world that have this program, and it actually goes from primary years all the way up through high school. So you can have PYP, which is primary years program, middle years program, and diploma program. My focus was the diploma program, which was the junior senior year of high school.
Yeah, interesting. I don't have a lot of experience in that realm. Like, I do recognize IB from looking at graduation, tracking graduation data, and that's always one of the options for the seals and such. But it's not something that I've had a lot of experience in, so it's neat to hear about how it all works. And you talked about creating these dashboards and how that's kind of increased the value of that data for your teachers. Um, and something that you mentioned in your form for this interview and preparing for this interview, and something that we've connected on in the past, has been the whole idea of like not wanting to overburden the teachers. And you talked about when you were a teacher having that data and not having the time to look at it. So, what strategies do you recommend? We talked about building a dashboard, but in terms of how that dashboard operates, what it looks like, what strategies do you recommend for making sure that we're decreasing the amount of time that it takes to pull that value from the data?
Um, well, I think what strategies? I think the having somebody who can dedicate themselves to the data work is really beneficial. Teachers are already overstretched, and if we can't get teachers who are oriented towards numbers and data and mathematics to be able to do the work, then we're not going to be able to get our primary teachers or our middle years teachers to be able to do the work. So I think there really needs to, I'm a firm believer that there needs to be somebody on staff who can really focus on this. Maybe it's the curriculum coordinators, maybe it's the learning coaches, I don't know, but there should be somebody who's really focusing on it. I also am of the belief that my personal goals are trying to give teachers more. How do I want to say this? I'm trying to help teachers out without giving them more work to do. And I think as a coach or as a coordinator or as a dedicated data person, there should be some initial setup. There should be some initial processing to help get the teachers on board so they can start digging into the data. I see sometimes with some of these larger platforms where they're just inundated with data, which is awesome, but it's not user friendly. So it takes like a whole
Yep.
day of training to just understand how it works. It should be intuitive. It should be easy to access. It should be digestible. And I think that's the main thing for me, my push with trying to get data into the everyday teacher's hands.
Yeah, I agree. And I have a story that I tell often. I'm not sure if I've told you this story before, but essentially I was in a meeting with some high school teachers, and they were trying to uh, look at data that is coming from, I think at that point we were looking at data from our EOC, so like our state assessments. And we had a lady in there who was teaching us how to use a platform to look at the data. And the platform itself was just so clunky, and you had to like do weird horizontal scrolling that, and then it would like be like mismatched, like off centered, and I don't know, it was just so strange. So they're all just like, okay, like this is all we're going to go through all of this just to figure out what we want. And then one of them said, okay, but the main purpose we want this is to be able to group our students and give them some reteaching. Oh, they were like benchmark assessments, I think, leading up to the state assessment. Give our students some reteaching on the standards that they were struggling with. And so, is there like a way that we can group the students based on standard on this platform? And her answer was, yeah, you can download it, export it here as a spreadsheet. And then, once you export it, you can sort it. And then you could also add some conditional formatting and maybe even filter it too. That way you have those groups of students. And they all looked at me, and I said, oh, yeah, no, I got you. I'll create like a template for you so that you can drop it
Yeah.
in, and it'll categorize them for you. And she told them, I don't I don't know why it rubbed her the wrong way, but she said, you guys aren't going to always have somebody here that's going to be able to do that for you. You guys should want to be able to know how to do all of this on your own and pull apart this data and everything. And I'm just like, why? Like, why are we focusing on all of those steps? One, it takes time, it's tedious, and the more steps there are, like, that's not the important part. The important part is whether or not the teachers can actually analyze the data, reflect
Right.
on the data, and be able to act on the data. Like, the important part is not that they know how to use conditional formatting. I don't care anything
No.
about that.
No, and
Um,
it's not for a lack of wanting either. The
right.
teachers want to be able to do this. We just
It's
don't
the
have the
time.
time. We don't have the time.
Yeah.
We don't have the energy. We don't have the bandwidth to do it. Like our mental capacity. When we come
Right.
home at the end of the day, we're done. We are done. And
Yep.
so yeah, you should have time to do all this stuff. No, like if you're one of those exceptional teachers who has the time or has made the time, has made it a priority, awesome, go for it. But it should be stuff that is useful to you right out of the gate. I think there's so often that you get admin who's on board with this, but they're looking at it at 40,000 feet.
Yep.
Then you have the teachers who need to look at it down here, and there's never a meeting of the two where it's useful for both people. So if again, with some of these bigger platforms that I've seen, we'll give you student data, but it's only itemized to student by student by student. There's no grouping then. So now you can't see it.
Right.
How is it working as a class? How is it working as a grade level? It's only student by student. Or we're up at this level where we say you can only see it by class, you can only see it by subject, and teachers aren't able to get into the nitty gritty of what they need for their individual students. So there needs to be this common ground and this flexibility to go between the two, I think. Um,
Yeah, I
if we
agree.
really want to make a data change or a change with data in schools.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm also on the same page in terms of like I feel like Looker Studio is a great way to kind of bridge that gap and be able to look at data in those multiple and all the different ways. And so when you're looking at those bigger groups, you can drill down to the smaller student data, um, and yeah, it's so important that teachers are given a chance to look at that tiny data because that's also where those celebrations come in. If you're looking at that tiny progress monitoring data, that's where you're going to be able to find the biggest impact. So,
Right. And
yes,
you're able to start seeing where there's some disconnects. You know, you've got the high flyers. That's going to be easy. We need to differentiate. We need to get them more extensions, I guess I should say, instead of differentiate. We need to get them more extensions on what they need to do. We've got the kids who are really struggling. Okay, let's figure out ways we can connect with them. But what about those kids in the middle who are either rocking the tests but aren't talking in class, or are presenting like they know everything in class, but they can't get through the tests properly? Like, that's sometimes where those connections are made, and we end up focusing on the extremes here, and we miss the kids in the middle. But with something like Looker Studio, you can start breaking it in. You have this bigger picture, and how does this subgroup look? How does this subgroup look? And it all the filtering. I think it's intuitive enough once you know that you can click on different things, that
yep.
teachers can really dig in and they can really feel like they've got some ownership in the data, whether they've processed it themselves or not. It's handed to them, but they can dig in as far or as high, like as deep or as high as they need to for whatever they're looking at. Just a really powerful tool.
Right, right. And it's so important that we have that data in a way that's actionable, right? One of the things that I see often is that we're presenting data, we've collected this data, we're presenting it, we're talking about it, and then we're walking away and not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And it just is a big buzzkill. It makes. I remember being that teacher and thinking, I'm not looking forward to the next meeting because there's no cycle to it.
Right.
And we always talk about like we want these data cycles. We want to be able to collect that data, act on that data, and then come back and see whether or not there's been a change. So I feel like if you're only stopping at the collection or the reflection piece and you're not actually acting on it, then you're just losing a ton of people and you're over assessing the students, which is not a good idea either.
Right.
All right. Can you give an example of a time when you uncovered an impactful insight that wasn't initially obvious from the data? I'd love to hear a little bit more about IB data and what that looks like, and how you guys end up reflecting and acting on that kind of data.
Yeah, well, I've got one from one of my clients. They, prior to implementing the dashboard that I had made for them, they did their typical reflections with the staff, and they said, "Hey, where do you think your students are struggling? Where do we need to do improvements? Is there, or maybe not improvements, but like where can we shore up maybe our assessment practices so we can get them more trained on how these assessments are done, or more practice on that type of assessment?" And the teachers went through the whole process, and then they were handed the dashboard and they started going through that, and they realized that because there's multiple papers on the exam, the teachers thought paper one was the issue, but then it was very clear that paper two was where they were underscoring. So they were able to take this and say, "Oh wow, our gut, while it's 90% of the time is correct, our gut about our students is correct. When we look at these bigger picture, these data things, we might be off." So I would guarantee that almost every teacher could tell me exactly about one student and how they're doing on that one student or that one topic or that one whatever. But when you say, okay, now how is my whole class doing, or how is the whole department doing, they're not going to have a good feel of that. And so having something like this says, oh wow, okay, so we really need to practice our paper two, and whatever the performance metrics are for that, so that way they can maximize their scores and they can really improve for the assessments when the external exams come through.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so important to acknowledge the fact that yes, our gut feelings are correct 90% of the time, but that 10% is everything, right? When you're talking about students, those are they're individuals that are just slipping through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I often think about the students who are well behaved but and considered to be good students, so therefore they assume that they know what they're doing. um, and I feel like I was definitely in that group growing up. I
Right.
was one of those students where like everyone's like, oh yeah, she knows because she's sitting there quietly doing her work, and I'm nah, I did not always know what I was
Yeah.
doing,
Well,
and I
and we
probably could have used
sometimes,
a little bit more extra work.
yeah, and sometimes we get that single story about our students too, where
Mm-hmm.
we think, okay, this kid's really good at this stuff, but then there's that topic that they're slipping, or and we don't follow up with that. Or there's a kid who's always struggled, but they're really starting to knock it out. But we always kind of have in the back of our head those first few months where they just struggled, and we are always just giving them that extra attention, which isn't a bad thing, but they might have moved past that, and maybe
Yeah.
that attention can be focused on someone else. And having the data kind of take the cold approach to it, where it doesn't take in any of our feelings or emotions or how we feel about the kids. It now starts to say, oh wait, maybe I am missing something, or maybe I do have just a single story about this kid. Maybe they are progressing out of this and into a different space, and the data can help clarify some of those things as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So we talked a lot about your IB dashboards. I'm curious, and I'm sorry, I do give questions ahead of time, and this was not on the list, so I apologize for throwing this curveball at you. But I am curious if you have used Looker Studio to create any other dashboards beyond the IB dashboards, or is that your main focus right now?
That's been my main focus for the moment. I am looking to partner with other schools to start building out more data dashboards for them. But my primary focus, because that's been my wheelhouse, that's what I've known, has been IB data. But as I get into data more and more, I realize there's more and more that I want to do as well. So any way that I can help schools is what really hoping to build out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's endless, right? We have so much data now, we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about Datafied Classroom, right? I said that
Yep.
right. For
Yeah.
some reason, that just sounded wrong coming out of my mouth. You know how like you say something, you're like, wait a second, what am I saying? Tell me more about your work with schools and how that goes. You talked a little bit about um, working with teachers. Who do you primarily work with, and what does that look like?
Um, the tools that I have on my website, they are targeted for teachers who just need a little bit of assistance. So I've created a couple grade books for primary teachers, middle year teachers, even it could even be for high school teachers as well. Where it's a data gathering platform. So like they can download a spreadsheet, they can buy a very cheap and affordable spreadsheet, and they're putting their data in there, and it gives them multiple metrics to grade. It's focused on standards based, because I think if you've got a percentage based, a lot of the grade books that are out there do the percentage based. So what I've really looked at for some people that I know that personally had struggles with it were standards based, and how do we track that, and how do we come up with a better way to see where the students are at the end of whatever unit. So I put in some various statistics, like a mode, an average with the formatives, without the formatives, and trend lines in there, so they can just do a couple drop downs and it all populates
Cool.
for them. So that's something that I've done. I've also done a predicted grades with IB. We have to send out our predicted grades. I don't know. I don't think we have to do that with AP. Um, but with IB, every teacher sends what the predictions will be for the students on what they're going to get. And so I have a predicted grade tracker that will help go over the 2 years that you're teaching the kid, and kind of, again, doing multiple statistics, multiple metrics to say, here's where they're at. If you need to be more conservative, if you need to be more generous, based on applying for college apps, not applying for college apps, getting ready for the exam,
Hmm.
etc. You got a little bit of leeway. So it doesn't tell you what the actual grade is. All of these tools, they don't tell you what the grade is. It tells you roughly where the student is trending, where their data
Right.
is pointing them, and then you use that thing that you know about them to help kind of hone in on where it's at. And most of the time, it's all kind of targeting the same space, but sometimes you'll have those outliers where you think they're this, but they're actually this, or vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
That's neat. So do you mostly work with international schools or also in the States?
I work with both. Yeah, I've got some clients in the States, and I've got some outside the US as well.
Interesting. It's
Yeah.
always fun to hear the different stories that schools have from all over. I mean, and you've already heard and seen lots of different situations from all over. But I always think it's a unique experience to be able to work with schools in different areas of the world. So that's got to
Yeah, it's
be
really cool. I mean, it's amazing because you see how different everything is, but then you also see how similar everything is as well.
yeah, right.
A lot of the international schools are really trying to help kids get into universities in Europe or in the US. And, they've got US based curriculums, but they're not held to the same requirements that the US does as far as state standards. There is an accrediting body. There's multiple accrediting bodies that will do that for the schools, but it's not as tight as some of the state standards. So it's interesting because you see often building curriculums, and you have these more idealized curriculums where you can have more project based or more inquiry based or those types of things, but still bringing in the standards and also still knowing that we're still preparing them properly for university. Um, but it's just a little bit. I don't want to say looser, but it is looser. I mean, we still have
Yeah.
all of the things that we have to do, but we just have more creativity and more leeway to do some of those things, which is really cool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that is really neat. I almost feel like there's just as much of a difference working with schools from different states within the United States as there is working with schools internationally. I do agree with your assessment that there's the expectations are not as strict, but it's wildly different from state to state around here, and I'm assuming will continue to be so.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah.
And even from public to private to charter schools in the states, there's a wide
Yes.
swing of
Yeah.
expectations and standards and all of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we talked a little bit about Datafied Classroom. What is the actual website for Datafied Classroom?
Datafiedclassroom.com.
.com.
Simple,
Simple
easy,
enough.
one word.
Yep.
What two, like well, two words squished together as
Squished
one
together.
website word. Yeah, one
Yeah, you don't have any dashes
URL.
in that or anything.
No
I
dashes. Yeah,
have
just
the data-informed impact.com, but I did also I have a redirect from data no-informed impact.com. So
very good. Very good.
I've covered all my bases there because sometimes adding in those dashes makes things a little bit more complicated for sure.
Yes. Yep.
All
I'm
right.
also starting to roll out some videos on YouTube. I'm trying to get some tutorials put out on YouTube as well to help people get started if they're
Neat.
feeling a little stuck. That's a little bit slower going, but I'm trying to get some stuff out there as well, and generally on the various socials also.
Yeah, yeah, and we connected on LinkedIn, and I can say I love your LinkedIn content too. So if anybody wants to connect with Tom on LinkedIn, I highly recommend. And then I also want to shout you out because you're one of the speakers for Data and Education, a virtual summit, which is happening in June 10th and
Yes.
11th. So I'm excited about that as well. And tell us a little bit about what you'll be presenting there.
I'm going to be taking teachers through taking their data in their spreadsheets, however that's going to be, which could be interesting because if I have 5 people, there's going to be 5 different formats. But try and get them from their spreadsheets and connect it into Looker to kind of give a basic rundown of how all that works in a real introductory level of Looker Studio as well, so they can start seeing the power that's available there.
Yeah, so cool. We have a few sessions on a few introductory sessions, and I feel like those are. I'm so happy to have more than one because for one, it's kind of hard when you have three sessions at a time to make it into that specific session, but also because like I feel like that introduction period is the period that you need to focus on the most when it doesn't even really make sense the way I'm saying it, but essentially you have to get over that learning curve, right? Once you get over that learning
Yeah.
curve, then you're good to go. You can soar off into the sky. But getting over that learning curve is sometimes a little bit challenging. So I think if you're somebody who really wants to learn, you might even go to all three because it's going to be a valuable experience for sure. But beyond Looker Studio, of course, for the virtual summit, we also talk about all things data. It's not just focus on Looker Studio, but there's so much value that you can pull out of the data if you learn how to use Looker Studio, which is awesome, and it's free.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yep,
Looker Studio is free for everyone who's on Google Workspace, so it's awesome. If your school is using Google, then you likely have Looker available to you.
yep,
It's amazing. And I'm so excited for
yeah.
the summit. I can't wait to like just be immersed around a bunch of people who want to talk about data. How cool is that?
I know, right? It's fun every single time. This is our third one, and it's always, it's chaotic for me because I'm just looking at three different screens all day and trying to direct people. But when it all settles and I can actually go back and watch all the sessions and even like interact with people afterwards about what they learned, it's such a good feeling. It's exciting. So I'm excited to have you joining us. It's going to be great. The lineup this time is amazing. I'm excited.
Glad to be a
All
part of
right,
it.
perfect. Any last remarks that you want to make? Anything that you want to leave us with before we end things?
I think if this is going out to teachers, if you're a teacher listening to this, just get started. It's not going to be pretty. Like the a friend of mine uses the term that all data is bad data, which is the best available data. So just use what you can,
Love
get the
that.
data out there. That's Marshall Baker. I'll give him proper credit. But all data is bad data. It's what you can get. So all you need to do is start, and once you start, momentum will build. And just just
Yes.
just do it. Just do it. Don't
Yep.
don't wait for
Yep.
the perfect time. There is no perfect time. It's always going to be a little overwhelming, but just do it, and you'll be thankful that you did.
Yep. Don't wait for the perfect time and don't wait for the perfect data because no matter what, you can pull something out of it, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for joining us, and I look forward to the summit.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Well, my friend, did you enjoy it? I'm really hoping the answer is yes. And like every other podcast out there, I'm going to ask you for some big favors. Can you please make sure that you're subscribed? You don't want to miss the next episode, I promise. And then if you could leave a review, that'd be awesome too. If you're on YouTube, by the way, there's this great thing that you can do where you just like go to the box underneath the video and type in your thoughts, ideas, wishes, hopes, dreams, and hit comment. And it shows up under the video. It is public, just a warning. But I'd really love for you to do that. Share with me. What did you think about the episode? Or what are your dreams in life? It's okay. You can really leave any kind of comment. And I'll do my best to respond. Above all else, I appreciate you listening, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.